Today I would like to share a spiritual perspective on the origins of mental illness, emotional imbalances, and I would like to talk about what makes us an adult, a grown-up, and how do we get misled by the system we're born in. So at the root of any mental illness lies practically unwholesome identity. And this unwholesome identity is the identity of a child that has not developed to the point of a grown-up. And it's very important for all of us to understand that the majority of the people in this day and age, which are born in our society, are not grown-ups. They're grown-up children. And so it's a perspective. You don't need to agree or disagree. If you're interested in this, you may hear this perspective out. If it's not for you, then let it be. So through my observation and communication with people, and just through own life, I observed that the majority of people, despite their age, despite their belonging, are someone pushed into this, pushed to remain children. And it's very important to define the difference between being a child and being a grown-up. So most of the children are infantile. They do not have properly developed self-identity. And even as they grow up, they do not develop that identity properly. Most of our spiritual or streams of spiritual thought, philosophies, religions teach us to not to be egotistical or to dissolve our egos. But we don't understand that we cannot grow spiritually without having restored our healthy identity. And healthy identity is the identity of the consciousness. The identity of the consciousness is the same as the identity of a healthy grown-up. A healthy grown-up is a responsible being. Only a responsible being can grow spiritually, can build their lives, can take responsibility. What is to be responsible in from the spiritual point of view, or spiritual perspective point of view? To be responsible means to be aware, to perceive that one's reality is the extension of one's own consciousness. A child does not perceive the reality as the extension of them. They perceive themselves as the extension of their parents' reality, of the society, of the reality of the society, of their ideologies or their belongings, wherever they belong to, whether a certain system, society, political thinking, schooling, and so on and so forth. So the system does not encourage us to grow up. And yet we're told that when we are 18 or 21, we can go out, we can drink, we can indulge. A child is interested in everything within the projected reality because they cannot perceive themselves as autonomous being. They obsess, they become addicted, they throw tantrums, they rebel against the system and their parents. And all of these behaviors are the behaviors of a child, not of an adult. An adult is responsible, means is aware. An adult respects his or her own flesh. An adult is responsible for life. And this life is pulsating within them. It's their own consciousness. And so this life cannot be appreciated by a child. A child will rebel, a child will indulge, a child will obsess, a child will go into the addictions. Who goes into the addictions or abuse of life within themselves, only an irresponsible childish being, a being who has not created autonomous identity, but who lives with the identity of a codependent. And so in order to get something from the projected reality, they need to manipulate this reality. And so narcissism is at the core of the unwholesome identity, the identity of a child, you may say. And the child in this case means the not properly matured identity is at the core of any mental illness, emotional imbalances, and failures in life. Failure means when the person has not gained inner balance and groundedness. Maturity means you're grounded into your balance, into contentment. You are aware and understand what is to be done and what is not to be done. You're wise. You take responsibility in life, not because you're forced or someone told you to do so, but because you understand that the reality is the extension of you. You are not the extension of the reality. Now, the identity of a child is codependent on the identity of their parents, of their ideologies, of their belonging. And the child is considered a child because they haven't created an autonomous perception of themselves in reality. And that's why they naturally develop obsession about the reality. It is the child who obsesses about toys or the lack of them. It is the child who craves for sweets. It is the child that throws tantrums. It is the child that becomes hysterical. And it is normal when we are, at the age of whatever age below, let's say 15, 18. But then we are told that just because of the age, we can now indulge in smoking, drinking, intoxicate ourselves, eat as much as we want, attack other people, manipulate other people, and so on and so forth. We believe we have that power just because of our age. But are we really mature enough internally to take this responsibility for our lives? And from my personal observation, I would say no. I've observed people who could be 70, 80, 90, and they still have not developed that autonomous identity. Sometimes this identity is not developed over lifetimes because the identity is based on the elements of the projected reality. It is codependent on these elements, and it is indoctrinated into the belief that the projected reality defines itself. So this is the definition of a child. And the child can be in a grown-up body, but internally they are still children. They're not mature. They're not responsible. Even if they take care of their routines, at some point they start understanding that without that they will not get their life in order, at least on some level. So they start maybe prioritizing the material aspect of reality, try to be disciplined, try to do this and that. But at the core, there's still an identity of a child which is codependent. And from this identity grows narcissism. Narcissism is, in other words, an underdeveloped, unwholesome identity. It's the identity of a child in a grown-up body, because it is the child that manipulates, the child that wants something and throws a tantrum. It is the child who rebels against the parents and perceives subconsciously their parents in their body. The body is given by the parents, by the genetic material of the parents. And so when the child starts intoxicating and hurting their body, is because the child rebels against the shadows of their parents. The child wants to hurt the body because subconsciously they are angry at their parents, at whatever system and family or belonging or ideology that we're brought up in. And so the child starts rebelling against all of that in a very perverse, immature way. Instead of respecting their body and life in this body, this life is themselves. They do not perceive it that way. They perceive that life is in the elements of the projected reality, in the materia, in the, intoxicants and forms of indulgence, and they pursue it foolishly, immaturely. So what type of spiritual awareness are we speaking about here? How can we even grow spiritually? Spirituality itself becomes another element for immature beings to fulfill themselves, to feel that they are powerful, that they are something, when in reality their identity is unwholesome and they cannot perceive that they are something, that they are fulfilled from within. That therefore they become codependent on that projected reality. And in order to get more supply, because they consider that supply as the source of their happiness, as the source of fulfillment, but that is a temporary source of fulfillment, if ever. And so they create manipulative tactics to depend on this reality in such a way where they think foolishly, immaturely, that they are in control. And so we've observed in our society the rise of narcissism, manipulation, control, on all levels, from the social level, spiritual level, energetic level, to physical level, to the level of interpersonal communication, relationships, personal relationships. That's why we observe people who are incapable of building a family, growing up children in a balanced way, because children cannot grow up children. Children should not pursue spirituality or be in a position of power, but they unfortunately are. Because to my observation, I would say almost everyone is a grown-up child who is not perceiving themselves in a wholesome way. They have not developed autonomous identity of a grown-up. An autonomous identity is that which is rooted within the essence. It perceives its essence and therefore is fulfilled by the essence. So true spiritual path should lead, first of all, to the restoration of wholesome identity of an autonomous being. We can never be independent, but we can always be autonomous. And this autonomy defines our maturity. Without maturity, we cannot understand the essence of any spiritual knowledge or practices, because we start identifying with these practices as the ways to define ourselves, to give us something, to make us feel powerful, to make us feel like we are something, that we belong to something, that we are going to progress. A grown-up does not live in the past or in the future. A grown-up does not expect. A grown-up does not indulge. A grown-up does not throw tantrums. A grown-up does not rebel. It is a child that does all these things. It is the child who manipulates. It is the child who believes in magic and manipulates others, or doesn't feel any responsibility for their actions. It is the child who blames the environment for their failures, misfortunes, actions. It is the child who lives in the reactive mode. When we speak about inner healing, mental, emotional, physical healing, we speak about gaining autonomy and acting from the standpoint of consciousness. Awareness means being an adult and responsible for our body and our life. A child cannot be responsible. A child rebels against the body by thinking that they are free to intoxicate themselves. They rebel against the shadows of their parents by taking drugs, alcohol, indulging in any forms of indulgence, from pornography addiction, sexual addiction. A child comprehends everything as a form of entertainment. A grown-up is responsible in life and takes life in a way seriously, meaning that they cherish their life because they understand the body is the vehicle of life. So they don't fool around with their body, with their well-being. A child is playing with their life, with their body, with other people. Because the child is driven by a momentary desire to indulge and entertain, and they never come out of this paradigm until and unless life pushes them to grow. Because of their own soul maturity, they start thinking, contemplating, not really thinking, contemplating about the essence of life. And perhaps that will lead them to the point of taking responsibility for their lives, becoming considerate of their environment, feeling grounded within themselves, and treating other people as they would treat themselves. But at first, they would need to understand who they are and why they are not treating themselves properly, why they are indulging and polluting their body, intoxicating their body. Where does it lead? Except for death. So we age because we remain children, because we waste our energy foolishly, because we cannot remain in the present moment. It is a mature consciousness that constantly remains in the present moment. The immature consciousness does not remain in the present moment. The immature consciousness is all over the place, is restless, is anxious, because these anxiety and restlessness are the sign of incompleteness, unwholesomeness, lack of fulfillment, lack of connection to the source, the spiritual source consciousness, and thus a need. It indicates a need to connect to the projected reality, to cling to it. And if something doesn't go their way or some element is not there, they resort to manipulation, to manipulative tactics, to cheating, to lying, because they do not understand that the projected reality is not separate from them. And so they look for the meaning of life within the projected reality. They look for the meaning of joy and for joy, for fulfillment in the projected reality, and thus never grow up, but waste their vital energy to one day see their body shriveled, shrunk, aged, and decaying, rotting alive, because the identity is unwholesome and the loss of energy and thus life is inevitable. So what do we do to grow up? The first step is to become aware. To become aware and to take responsibility for one's own life, for one's own body, and for one's own environment. At first, it will feel unnatural. At first, it will feel like we are in a suppressed situation. Because, for example, when in terms of love, in terms of relationships, our parents teach us that by just saying that they love us or by us responding to them, we gain the key, the access to someone else's energy system, to someone else's resources, to someone else's warmth, and we feel entitled. That's the reality of a child. When we are grown-ups, we do exactly the same. We use the word love, we use relationships for our energetic supply. We do not understand the essence of relationships and how they help us to actually grow as adults or into adults and become the way of spiritual evolution and development. We do not see that perspective. We see the relationships, life, material gains as a way to define ourselves, as the sources for some sort of a supply, the supply of fulfillment that can never fulfill us. And that's why, even though we try so hard to gain this supply, we never grow up in our essence, and we forever remain the slaves of the projected reality. And that's why our flesh decays and ages as well. That's why we are forever unfulfilled. We manipulate relationships. We please people. All of these narcissistic traits, whether you are empathic or aggressive or savior or pleaser. It is all one and the same thing. It defines immaturity, defines your identity of a child, an immature child, who just uses different strategies to get something, to gain something, to feel that they are someone or something, to feel fulfilled, whether in the name of spirituality, material gains, relationships, practices, anything else. So, but in reality, nothing truly defines our essence. And if we don't understand this, we will never grow up. We will forever be gliding along the surface looking for the supply. And all of these are supplies, the energy supplies. They're the supplies to the unwholesome, unfulfilled identity. This identity is like a black hole. It constantly pulls everything from the projected reality into itself to feel, at least for a moment, fulfilled. And that's why with time, the restlessness and anxiety grow. The mental illness is on the rise. The emotional imbalances are on the rise because we do not understand that relationships are built on free will of two mature beings, not two children. But the relationships are built to contribute and give and share, not to take, manipulate, and get an energetic supply. Success is built because of responsibility, because of concentration, because of awareness, because of understanding how to channel one's creativity, how to express oneself naturally. The child does not express itself or himself or herself fully naturally. A child is still an extension of the parents. And so all their behaviors are just copied behaviors of their parents, which eventually become their crystallized masks. So who is not a narcissist? Who does not carry narcissistic traits? Maybe there aren't that many diagnosed narcissists, but almost everyone is an immature being. And at the core of all the mental illnesses lies narcissism. Or in other words, from my perspective, an immature, unhealthy, childish, unwholesome self-identity. One more point about actions and reactions. An adult acts, a child reacts. So as long as we are in this reactive mode, as long as we're in the reactive mode towards our environment, towards people, we are still children. An adult does not react. An adult observes. An adult has a more expanded and wholesome awareness and acts not upon the suggestions within one's mind, not upon thoughts, not upon emotions or emotions invoked by the external reality. An adult acts out of one's natural being, out of awareness. Awareness is something beyond thoughts and emotions. An adult does not have naturally thoughts or emotions. An adult does not entertain thoughts and emotions generated by other people's shadows or anyone. An adult is absorbed within one's own consciousness. An adult is a consciousness living in the body. Those who have thoughts, emotions, can be easily provoked, or any reaction can be invoked. Those are children. A child is not in control in the sense of control over their consciousness or body. Meaning they can't be controlling the consciousness, but on an individual level, the consciousness of an adult is in control of the body. And this is an organic being. It's a unified being. It's an alignment when awareness is just but naturally operates through the body. A child is a limited identity. A child is the being who always reacts, who doesn't act but always reacts, operates from thoughts and emotions that aren't even theirs. They are from the collective. They are the shadows. They're the residue of the collective. They're the shadows of the parents. On a spiritual level, they're still the extensions of their parents. That's why they're codependent, and that's why they're reactive. They don't understand what action is. All their actions are but reactions. All their feelings and emotions are but reactions. That's how you can define that this being is an immature being. Because when you are established in awareness, you are consciousness living in the body. You are an adult. You observe and choose to act. A child has no choice. The reaction is an instinctive impulse which it does not give one time to understand the reality for what it is. A child does not have free will or choice. This will is wrapped up in the shadows of the collective, where the social programs, religious programs, ideologies, parents' emotions and thoughts, and the parents' emotions and thoughts are their parents' emotions and thoughts, and so on and so forth, their bloodlines, their ancestry. And so a child is a codependent being on all of that, all of these shadows. An autonomous being has created a wholesome identity and thus a spiritual protection shield, which is impenetrable. By their own awareness, they protect themselves. Otherwise, they become the food to the collective. On this realm, everything is like this. Either you're a food or you eat. When you're autonomous and connected to the source, you do not depend or need to depend on the supply from the external reality. And so you're a wholesome being, an adult, a mature consciousness. Despite your age, physical age, because age doesn't define anything. Actually, the age, the physical age or aging process defines or shows that this being is draining their life and remaining in that unwholesome, childish, immature identity. And so the purpose of spiritual evolution and development is to, first of all, become autonomous, not rebel and show your foolish independence while you remain in the shadows of your parents or as an extension of your ideologies and beliefs. On the contrary, it is the process of regaining of one's true identity when you connect to the source. And the source is the eternal awareness, the being, the high being, which fulfills. Until then, all your life is a chaotic, reactive mode of being, which drains you and exhausts you with time. It is our society that is made out of immature beings. It is immature beings who create movements, religions, ideologies, and hide behind them. It is the immature society and their representatives, the children who need something within the external reality to hold on to. They create movements, they create ideologies, they indoctrinate and control, because this makes sense. This creates a false sense of identity, strengthens it, gives them power to hold on to it and to control other beings. Why do people control one another? It's because in reality, they need energy. They need the supply. They need that conscious focus and power of those beings on them. Power means you give your consciousness and its power away. The power of consciousness through the focus. When you concentrate on something, when you believe in something, when you support any movements or any ideology or any situation, you give out your energy. And this is the act of an immature being. Or in other words, it's a reaction of a child. A child plays peace and war games, manipulation, like magic, any form of magic, ritualistic spirituality, any form of spirituality in this day and age is childish and immature because it is not rooted within the core of the self. How can it be if no one knows who they truly are? Their identity is childish and immature. How could they connect to something real if there is no perception of the ultimate reality within? And therefore, this world is just the extension and the projection of the immature being, of the immature collective being, of the childish collective being, where each and every element of this being is codependent on each other, and thus is forced by default to manipulate and to attract the conscious focus, or in other words, energy from another element for its own survival. And so we live in this society and so we interact. And this is the reality of our childish beings. No one is a grown-up, even if they play a role. To play a role is easy. To hide behind the masks is easy. But to be an adult, a responsible, mature, wholesome adult is unrecognizable. There is no reference point to understand what the mature and wholesome being is, because there are no living examples. And everyone is pushed to believe that the more you react, the more movements you produce within this projected reality, the more successful, the more meaningful you are. And this is, again, a very childish perspective. Without the restoration of self-identity, we can't gain autonomy. We can't even understand what maturity and spiritual liberation are, because we can never completely free ourselves from the collective or universal. We are a part of creation, but we can become a wholesome, autonomous being, spiritually aware, holding one's own spiritual space and being responsible for the space naturally, with naturally ground within oneself, content, fulfilled, and yet very aware and focused about the projected reality, knowing how to navigate within this projected reality in a wholesome, healthy way, establishing healthy relationships with the projected reality without denial, rebelling, pushing it away, or indulging. Thank you very much, and best wishes to everyone.